latest college football rankings out Tuesday night. Bucks are number 6 in the new CFP rankings, putting them in an 8th spot in the bracket, thanks to Boise State and SMU on paths to first-round byes. Currently looking like they're going to host Tennessee in the first round, and that's exciting to me at least. You get the Vols up in some cold weather, the shoe, maybe some snow, a lot of that stuff. Hit me with your first thoughts on the matchup, Garrett.
My first thoughts are, if this wasn't an SEC team, I'd be slightly terrified, mostly because Tennessee has an elite defensive line and a very good running back, which obviously are very good recipes for winning cold weather games. But, Tennessee isn't exactly a cold weather state, so I'm sure that the 20 degrees or 15 degrees, whatever the temperature ends up being, is going to play a pretty significant factor into that one. But I think the FanDuel line was -9 that you shared the other night, and
Bucks favored by 9, right?
Yep. I would say that's a little high. I would still put Ohio State as the favorite. My personal line would probably be somewhere around 6.5. I think that's a little bit more fair. So if I was going to put some action on that, I'd probably put Tennessee to cover that 9.5 point spread right now.
Yeah, 9-0 for Tennessee. Is that, Chris, is that line, first of all, your thoughts, and then is that line, is Garrick's naysaying the line kind of a function of being enmeshed with Ohio State people all around him who are pretty down right now? I mean, would the average college football fan look at that and say, yeah, Ohio State's going to get dump trucked, or is that 9 seem fair? What are your thoughts on the matchup?
I don't know. Yeah, it still feels a little, I'll hit the spread first. Still too soon to ask the question, because I'm like 9, 6.5. I'm thinking like 3.5. So yeah, I'm probably not good to ask. But part of that is for what you kind of hit on, Garrick, right? If you think about Tennessee specifically, that defensive line, that defense overall, they're 6th in the country in tackles for loss per game. So that's not good. And I saw Kyle Jones in our Slack last night talking about they got a whole bunch of NFL draft picks on that defensive line. So as I was saying on our show the other night, I mean, everybody knows offensive line is the Achilles heel right now, but I think it's even worse than some folks want to even believe that it is right now. So yeah, I don't like that matchup at all. I will say Nico's from California, the Samson's from Louisiana, their second best receivers from California. So you do have that going for you, I guess, a little bit, that, it's not just, Tennessee maybe he's playing a little bit of cold weather, but a lot of those guys, and Nico's a freshman, obviously, and he's from California. So those things may help a little bit if you're trying to play the cold weather card as helping Ohio State. But I mean, I know you didn't ask this, but I would much rather play Alabama than play Tennessee.
Is that universal? Would you guys agree you'd rather play Alabama than Tennessee as an Ohio State backer?
100%, especially defensively. Alabama is much easier to score on than Tennessee.
83rd in tackles for loss per game, if you were wondering, and 33rd in defense, 53rd in rush defense, whereas Tennessee's top 10 in all those metrics.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've seen some people have had James Pierce Jr. of Tennessee as a top 5 NFL draft pick, and that's their top edge rusher. So you think about some of the struggles Ohio State's had up front to have to go against a top 5 draft pick potentially on the defensive line. That's certainly something that sticks out.
I don't think weather's an impact. I think Tennessee playing outside the state of Tennessee is probably the biggest impact. They just don't score points when they go to other houses, which tells me that they just aren't used to operating when they don't have the comforts of home. That being said, we just came off of a game that went the way none of this analysis would have ever predicted. And so I know that's not the discussion we're going to have, but if Ohio State decides to turtle, it's going to be 13-10 again. It doesn't matter what the temperature is going to be.
Yeah, that's the interesting question to me, because I've heard some Ohio State fans say that, the run blocking is a weakness for cold weather, but they're still going to try to pass, I assume, in cold weather. I mean, I can't confidently say that because of what I saw Saturday, but you would hope they would try to pass more so than they did against Michigan. What's
going to be funny is that there are going to be people our age, Jason and Chris, who are going to immediately invoke illegal cleats if it is Tennessee because of the Citrus Bowl 32 years ago that they're still salty about. They're slipping around in Orlando, and one team was slipping around in Orlando. The other one was had good footing, and people are still mad, and this will be a revenge game.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, to me, that's really an interesting component of all this is some of these teams coming up to cold weather locations. You got Alabama projected to go to Notre Dame, and that may be locked in. Indiana going to Georgia, RIP Hoosiers. That's a really, really tough one to win. Arizona State going to Penn State in the first round. Do you guys? This is a weird question because Ohio State fans were a 10 on excitement after the Indiana game, and they're probably a negative 10 on excitement Saturday after the Michigan loss. Where do you think they'll be for this one? And do you I have a friend who swears it's not going to sell out, and I think he's insane for saying. I absolutely think it'll sell out. I don't think there's a question it'll sell out. Do you guys think it'll sell out?
It'll sell out. It might be orange, but
you
it'll
think
be
so?
Full. Yeah, that's not a long drive. Knoxville's what, like 8 hours?
It's not, but
It's only
road
about 5 or 6.
5 or 6. Sorry. Wow.
But road allotment for tickets, they're not going to get a ton. They're going to have to go secondary market to get them if they want to achieve what you're saying.
I think it'll sell out. I think the novelty of a playoff game in the shoe in December will mean a lot to a lot of people. Now, if this was maybe 5 years down the line and the same sort of set of circumstances happened, maybe not. But I think the whole novelty of the first ever playoff game in the Horseshoe in December will register a lot with a lot of people.
You guys remember when Ohio State was in quarters and the first couple of games the students weren't back yet? Mm-hmm. And they're always a little bit lighter. Why is the stadium not full in August and early September? It's because 60,000 kids haven't come back to town yet. It'll be the same thing. It's going to be the same thing.
They're playing horseshit teams then. I don't know. I don't buy that. This game's going to be sold out. Maybe the secondary market prices won't be as insane, but I don't think it's going to be 30% Tennessee fans. I think it'll be sold out and it'll look just like it normally.
I think it'll be in the 90,000s. I think it'll be, the corners will be a little empty.
I'll take 100. I'll take over 100,000. I think for a college football playoff game, the first one ever in Ohio Stadium, I think it'll get 100,000. Ramsey does make a fair point about the students because a lot of students are not going to be on campus because finals are going to be over. They're going to go home or they necessarily going to come back. But I still think for the average Ohio State fan, this is going to be a very exciting thing. I think, it's something we got to remember that the loudest voices on social media, even necessarily the people that are commenting on our stories, are not necessarily the people that are buying tickets to games. I think for that average Ohio State fan, just the idea of going to see Ohio State play an SEC team in cold weather in December at the shoe is going to be a very exciting thing that people are going to want to be at.
Won't be a noon game. That's weird. Are people going to be ready for that?
It could, though. It could. Because there's a noon slot on the 21st. And
my God. Could you imagine?
Enough with those. I tend to agree with you guys. I think what helps is a really big town. This is not Lincoln or State College or something. There's a lot of people that live here, and a lot of people will have some money and they're going to want to go see this. But yeah, the student thing is real. And what do you know when final exams in?
They start later this week, so they end next week.
Oh, yeah, well over by then.
Long gone.
Looking at Saturday's championship slate, Big 12, you got number 16 Iowa State against number 15 Arizona State, and that seems like you have to win this game to get in type deal, and then you get to play Penn State. ACC's got number 17 Clemson versus number 8 SMU. And saw Dabo running his mouth the other day about how a lot of people would have to eat their words if they can get in and win a 3-loss national championship. But that's another one that, Clemson gets in with a win, obviously, automatic bid. SMU may be in trouble there. And that would kind of stink for SMU. That's a team that probably, Miami is going to have a beef. We'll talk about that later. But everyone hates Miami. No one really hates SMU. So it's a little different there. SEC, number 5, Georgia against number 2, Texas. And, of course, in the Big Ten, number 3, Penn State versus number 1, Oregon. Doesn't look like Ohio State's going to drop regardless of what happens Saturday. That's kind of what I came away from the ranking show. And Ward Manuel, the Michigan athletic director that's the CFP committee chair, very forthright, man, almost uncanny in saying, hey, these aren't changing. He basically said in the ranking show, Miami's not getting in. And so I don't think Ohio State can drop. My question is, can they move up? And if so, who should Ohio State fans be rooting for this weekend for that to happen?
Well, I think if there's going to be a chance for them to move up, it would be Penn State and or Georgia losing. Because you figure Oregon, if they lose, they're for sure going to be the 5 seed. They were the only undefeated team in the regular season. They have the best resume. So if they lose to Penn State, they're going to be the 5 seed for sure. Texas, I think they're either a 5 or 6 seed, depending on how the playoff committee would look at it, versus Notre Dame. I think there's a good chance they could end up being a 5 seed too if they lose to Georgia with only having that one loss. Though they're not quite as cut and dry because you look at their resume, they don't really have a signature win. If they lose to Georgia, their only losses would be to Georgia, the number 2 seed in the CFP, but they haven't beaten a team with more than 8 wins this year. So Texas would be a little more interesting, but I don't think they would drop below Ohio State. I think with Penn State and Georgia, it's interesting because with Penn State, Ohio State has that head-to-head win. And so there's certainly a case you could make if Penn State loses to Oregon on a neutral site, especially if you assume that loss is by more than 1 point, then that's another data point you can use to compare those two teams and make the case that Ohio State is the better team than Penn State. With Georgia, they're only 1 spot apart in the rankings. I do think Georgia has the better resume. I don't personally think Georgia should drop below Ohio State if it loses because I think it has the better strength of schedule. I don't think it should be punished if it loses to a team it already beat during the regular season. But I don't rule out that possibility that Ohio State could jump them, especially if it gets into a situation where the committee looks at it and goes, well, if we keep the rankings the way they are, do we end up with a rematch kind of situation? As they are right now, that wouldn't necessarily be the case, but it only takes one thing to move, and all of a sudden you could have Georgia playing Tennessee or Ohio State playing Indiana. So I think it's possible Ohio State could jump for either of those teams. I think if you're hoping Ohio State's going to get out of that 8 slot, then you're rooting for Oregon, you're rooting for Texas, because that at least gives you a chance. But nothing's going to be guaranteed there.
I'm a complete conspiracy theorist in this. I think that the CFP is a TV show. I don't think it's actually merit-based. They're not going to go out of their way to get the matchups they want, but if they can spin it PR style, they're definitely going to. I have this theory that Ohio State's either going to be at 8 and stay where they are and play Tennessee, or they're going to be at 6 because they want to. The committee wants them to play Alabama. I feel like that's how it's going to go. Now, like theoretically, if like Oregon beats Penn State and let's say Texas beats Georgia, like theoretically, based off that rankings, you would have Ohio State move up to 7. But then, like Dan said, the committee would look at that and go, oh, my God, Ohio State's going to play Indiana first round in this shoe? Hell no. No. Think about our ratings. We can flip this around a little bit. We can go, oh, Georgia 3 loss, all right, 8 seed it is, or however they want to spin it. Again, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they'll prove me wrong, and maybe Ohio State will play Indiana again round 1, and that would be kind of wild. But I think that this is a TV show, and they'll fudge the seeds a little bit within reason to get the matchups they want.
If you were wrong, there wouldn't be Tuesday night rankings shows. It is a TV show.
Good point.
It's true.
I do like your point about like seeing what happens, because if they do that, then we know, hey, this is all for show. I mean, I think some of it's for show right now, but then we know it's all for show. And speaking of some of that, like Miami right now is out. Ward Manuel confirmed they're basically staying out because there's no more data points for them to get back in. Canes AD Dan Radakovich. There we go. He's fired up, posting a final 3-game comparison between the U and Bama, and going out of his way to say Bama lost to bad teams, we lost to good teams. Does he have a beef? What about Ole Miss? Some of these other teams, do they have beefs?
More like Sadakovich. I think Miami lived dangerously all year, and it wasn't about the last 3 games of the season. It was the 12 they played where like, oh, they escaped. Oh, they lost. They escaped. They lost. Oh, nice job, refs. They lost. Get Miami out of here. They should enjoy the Pop-Tarts Bowl and be happy with the mascot that they can eat.
It's not like Alabama's been a ton better. I mean, to me, that this year, I know it won't work out every year, and I know I'm the Lone Ranger here, but this is exactly why 8 teams is the number, because we're arguing about teams that aren't even any good.
Right?
Miami's not any good. Bama's not any good.
Well, it's a TV show. You need to have like Gunther on Friends. That's the 12th player.
I felt genuinely bad for Florida State last year when they were undefeated and got left out, quarterback injury or not. I'm like, oh, that sucks. A Power 5 team getting left out undefeated, that's never happened. But the 12-team field, nobody feels bad for these bastards. No. Not a soul.
I would feel a little bad for SMU though if they get left out, because if SMU loses to Clemson, now granted Clemson's not that good a team, so you lose to Clemson, you kind of reap what you sow. But if you lose a game that you got into while other teams are sitting at home, and then they decide to put free loss Bama in over you, I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't be shocked if it happens, because again, TV show, if it's very close between Bama and SMU, which of those brands is going to bring in bigger ratings? I certainly believe that's something that could cross their minds, but I do hope that SMU gets in either way.
They're also 8th right now, though. They're not 11th or 12th. I mean, they're 8th. So
I'd agree with you if SMU goes out and loses by like a touchdown, but if they lose by like 21, I feel like all bets are off there.
It's crazy. 40 years ago, SMU and Bama brand equity weren't terribly far apart. SMU was old SWAC royalty, and this would be like ironically, it'd be like the death penalty struck twice. They got knocked out of the playoff for something that happened 40 years ago.
Dan, I like how you used a biblical analogy, reaping and sowing, when talking about Dabo's team. It only feels right that you did that. I don't know. I think Miami's like one of the few teams, and if we're being honest, Ohio State's probably that way to a lot of fans too, where like no one has sympathy for them. And there's probably like about 5 to 10 teams where people are like, whatever, man, you don't deserve it. You didn't play well enough. But where I'm at is like, with 12 teams, if you play in any Power 4 conference, even the ACC or the Big 12, which are kind of getting dunked on right now, if you just have one loss, you're in. Just one loss is all you got to do. You don't have to go undefeated anymore. Just have one loss or fewer in a bad conference. Now, obviously, Big 10 and SEC have it a little bit better, and kind of makes me wonder if we're kind of barreling towards something that'll become a Power 2 sooner than we think because of some of the controversies that are going to come out of some of these teams getting left out.
Yeah, but to that point, like that's why SMU should be in, right? Like you just said it, like a one-loss team in a power conference is going to get in. Like, I'm all for like Indiana getting in, but like Indiana's at no risk this weekend. Whereas let's say Penn State lost to Maryland, Indiana might theoretically be at risk of getting left out of a field this week. Whereas now I think they're very safe, but SMU is at risk because it's playing an extra game that it earned its way into. So that all plays into my, feeling that, SMU should be in regardless of what happens this week. I agree with Garrick, but if, they lose 35-0 or something, it's a different story. But if you're assuming a close loss, they should be in over Bama.
This is what the committee wants. They want us having this show talking about it because TV shows are as good as the production, but they're even better when people are talking about them when they're not on TV.
Drama, baby. Drama. Yeah. Bonus question before we get out of here. Where's Ohio State's mindset right now? And what do they have to do to make sure that they're back for this game? I mean, he's done it before. I mean, the Georgia game a couple of years ago certainly didn't seem to do it against Missouri last season. If you're Ryan Day, what are you doing to make sure your team is dialed in?
I mean, I think first and foremost, it starts with the players right now. I think the players, like they've got to be the ones first and foremost that they've got to get their minds right. You got to put this game behind you and you got to move forward. But I think the biggest thing, like just in a team in general, is you got to play freely. You got to play confidently. I think it's obvious they went into that Michigan game afraid to lose that game because they knew it was the game they couldn't lose. You can't like everyone's going to know the deal going into this game. If Ohio State loses this first round game, most likely there's going to be a new coach in 2025. You can't go into that game thinking like that. If you go into that game thinking we're scared to lose because our coach is going to get fired, you're probably going to lose because you're going to be playing a really good team. So you got to go into that game confident going, we're the most talented team in the country. We should be able to beat anybody who lines up in front of us. They obviously didn't get there for the Michigan game. We'll see if they can get there for a college football playoff game in about 17 days.
I would expect them to be up for the game. I mean, all these guys that came back for 3 reasons. 2 of those reasons are completely out the door. So they've got one thing left.
I think there's a crisis of confidence after they were put in position to lose last weekend. And they're going to go home for the holiday. Well, not really, right? So on the 20th to the 21st, they'll be playing. They'll have that memory of the Michigan game. They're back in the stadium again. And if that game starts out again where they're sort of playing with their food, going for field goals, I think you could see it start to veer towards, okay, here we go again. We're going to be running at these NFL grade tackles. I feel like we've seen this porno before last month, and he would lose the psyche of the team. Now, if they decide to start bombing them right at the gate, a team that doesn't score, if it's Tennessee now, doesn't score much when they're out of their home state, I think you could see them be like, you know what, the hell with it. We can get 1 out of 3, and that ain't bad. But if they don't jump all over them like they should have with Michigan, but refused to, yeah, That's how it would go, in my view.
One last chance. It's one last chance to play at home, right? Sorry, Garrick. I mean, this is it. All these guys, again, that came back. They got 1 goal left out of the 3, and they might be playing their last game. And, oh, by the way, they might be playing it at home. This team might lose. I have zero confidence in the offensive line, but I don't know that you're going to see some flat performance because they lost to Michigan. I don't think that will be why they lose.
To your point, Chris, for the seniors, I mean, literally their entire legacy is on the line in this college football playoff because they have not accomplished any of their major goals in their entire Ohio State career. So for whether you're Jack Sawyer, Cody Simon, whoever you are, for those guys, their legacy is all on the line. If you don't make a run in this college football playoff, your careers for all your individual accomplishments are going to be remembered by the fact that you never beat Michigan and you never won any championship.
You're Chad Henne. You're Jake Long. You're Mike Hart.
If I were Ryan Day, a lot of what Kirby Smart says and does makes me cringe, very much so, especially when he goes off his "nobody believes in us" tangent. Did you see they rate us number 2? They don't think you're good.
Nobody believed we could win in 8 overtimes against the very mediocre Georgia Tech.
It makes me roll my eyes and go, shut the hell up. Nobody didn't believe in you. Stop it. But under the circumstances, I kind of feel like Ryan Day could pull that off right now. I feel like he could go into that locker room and be like, listen here, guys, everyone says that you suck. We lost to Michigan again. We're never going to win another game. Burn down Ohio Stadium. Fold it all. It's over. But guess what? We got another playoff game. We're not going to a New Year's Six Bowl where there's going to be 35 opt-outs. It's a 12-team playoff now. To hell with it. We're a $20 million roster. We've got some dudes. Show them why you're awesome. Let's go. That's how I would try to motivate them. I don't know if it'll turn out that way. But I feel like that would be like, yeah, you know what? All right, screw it. We got a new life. These Southern boys coming up north? Hell no. But I don't know. We'll see how it turns out.
Win and they play Oregon in the Rose Bowl, right? It's a playing game for the Rose Bowl. That could be another thing to throw at them in the locker room.
You know, and it worked. It worked against Indiana. They convinced the players that, you know, Kurt Cignetti's comments from 11 months ago were like talking about them right now, and they all went out there ready to prove a point. So you got to get that back in their heads. And I think there will be plenty of bulletin board material. Some of it probably coming from us. I think there's going to be plenty of bulletin board material out there for the team.
They read 11 Warriors. Are you saying that, Dan? They read our content?
Possibly.
All right.
I'm reminded of Urban, the legendary story of when Urban trucked Tressel in January of 07. And the stories came out afterward in the book that he wrote, that he had basically made up a motivation board, a bunch of fake quotes, had a bunch of fake things printed. Like, and part of me is like, man, that's kind of weird. But then I'm like, well, whatever it takes, dude, like do it, you know, like, so Ryan, if you're listening, we're happy. We'll write some fake articles, man. We'll do some screen mock-ups. We'll send them to you.
I'll write some real ones. They'll
whatever you guys want, man. But last one, we'll get out of here. Rocky Top, great song or overrated?
Terrible.
Bad.
Horrific.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that I have a huge opinion on it. I'm one of those guys that like I know the fight songs, but I have to like hear them to really like think about them.
That's right. Dan doesn't watch movies either, so it's media. Definitely just opt out.
Yeah. Well, I did say last week that I thought "Hail to the Victors" was a good good fight song. So
it is.
I put that out there.
I hate Hail to the Victors. I don't mind Rocky Top, man. But I'm listening to like the Dolly Parton version, you know, like a real version, not their band doing it. I want to hear like Dolly do it or something like
Fish
that.
covers it, and I don't even like it. That's how you know.
Oh man, it's got great lyrics, man. Writing about corn from a jar, drinking corn from a jar. I mean, it's good stuff, man.
If Chief Keef cut a version of Rocky Top, I might like it. Otherwise,
Chief Keef doing Rocky Top.
A 50 Cent version.
Yeah, in the Rocky Top, I can feel it, man. All right, guys, had a blast, man. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you guys soon.